from confusion to confidence. Some people just don't get it. In the book of Mark chapter 8, we read that, after miraculously feeding 4,000 people with just 7 loaves of bread and a few small fish on the east side of the Sea of Galilee, Jesus crossed the lake and encountered some Pharisees on the other side. Their hostile attitude prompted Jesus to retreat to his boat and sail back across the lake. As they traveled, the disciples realized they only had 1 loaf of bread in the boat, likely purchased while Jesus was engaged with the Pharisees, unaware they would be setting off again so soon. Despite the disciples' concern over provisions, Jesus remained focused on the Pharisees and their negative influence. He warned his followers about the Pharisees, the people whose actions are not consistent with their claimed beliefs, the hypocrites, with their corrupting influence, using the metaphor of leaven to illustrate their hidden yet powerful impact. Just as leaven spreads throughout dough, the kingdom of heaven was like leaven hidden in meal, gradually transforming the whole. Jesus urged his disciples to be wary of the Pharisees' leaven, symbolizing their harmful teachings and practices. Jesus emphasized the importance of recognizing and guarding against the treacherous and deceitful influence of those who seek to lead others astray. His words served as a powerful reminder to remain vigilant and steadfast in the face of opposition and deception. The disciples were focused on their lack of food and immediately thought Jesus was talking about bread when he mentioned leaven. They believed he was warning them about the corrupt practices of the Pharisees. Their physical needs clouded their understanding, preventing them from seeing the deeper meaning of Jesus' words. In reality, Jesus was referring to the hypocrisy of the Pharisees that had taken root in their hearts. Despite witnessing a miraculous sign just hours before, the disciples had already forgotten its significance. They were too focused on material things rather than spiritual matters, causing them to miss the point of Jesus' teachings. His lessons are meant to challenge and transform us, but we often fail to see beyond the surface level. Through a life of obedience and effort, we can gradually uncover the true meaning of Jesus' words. As we deepen our relationship with the Lord, his teachings start to make more sense. Symbols and parables that once confused us now reveal profound truths. Spiritual growth allows us to fully grasp the wisdom of Jesus. Life is the spirit of humanity, where the light of the living can shine. It is through life that we can understand, grow, and thrive. The disciples, however, were blinded by their own misconceptions. The Lord, in his wisdom, did not just point out their error, but instead, he looked deeper into the root cause within themselves. This is an important lesson to remember. The true significance lies not in the mistake itself, but in the underlying beliefs and thoughts that led to it. Jesus' words may not always be easy to understand, but they always speak to the core of our being. It is not just about fixing mistakes, but about changing our way of thinking. Let us listen to this powerful message and work to align our thoughts with the divine wisdom that guides us. He passionately encourages them to acknowledge their lack of faith in God, which caused them to misunderstand his message. He reminds them of the miracles with the loaves of bread, highlighting the abundance of leftovers. Even though they saw these miracles firsthand, they were already starting to doubt. He urges them to think about the details of the miracles, not just to remember them, but to help them truly understand the deep revelation of God's love, care, and compassion. They remembered the specifics of the miracles, but missed the true spirit of God's love that was shown through them. After questioning them like children and listening to their answers, he shifts their focus inward, challenging them to figure out why they were struggling to understand. This direct approach goes beyond traditional reasoning, making them face their own lack of understanding. They eventually realize that he was not talking about bread, but rather the teachings of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Those with faith can understand, and those who are peaceful can gain insight. Without letting their anxiety cloud their judgment, how else could they have comprehended his message? What was the significance of the number of baskets they collected and their lack of understanding? How did the miracles help them realize that when he mentioned leaven, he wasn't talking about bread? Despite not referring to bread, how did the mention of those bread miracles aid in revealing the truth? The lesson he aimed to teach through the miracle was that God looks after his children and will provide for their needs. Unfortunately, this lesson had not been absorbed. The power of the miracle showcased his mission, but the love behind it was even more compelling. It offered a glimpse into the Father's heart. The criticism of Jesus does not come from a lack of understanding, but from a lack of trust in God. Despite seeing many miracles, they still worried about small things like bread. When we doubt ourselves, we also doubt God's presence in our lives. Jesus' miracles were just a glimpse of our Father's power, meant to remind us that help is always available when we seek it. The goal was not to make Jesus into God, but to show the true nature of our Father, the only God worth believing in. Jesus' mission was not to show off his own power, but to introduce our Father to humanity so they could know and trust him. Forgiveness alone is not sufficient, we need the gift of God himself to truly find joy in our lives. Jesus came to give us God, who is eternal life. The feeding miracles performed by Jesus not only provided food for the people but also taught an important lesson. His words were meant to guide their ears, while his actions were meant to show them the way with their eyes, hands, and mouths. Jesus encouraged them not to stress about food and drink, as God already knows what they need. He stressed the importance of prioritizing the kingdom of God, promising that all other necessities would be taken care of. However, the people quickly forgot this lesson and became fixated on material things rather than spiritual matters. Even after witnessing the miracle of the loaves, they failed to remember the love and provision of God. Instead, they became worried about their daily needs, missing the deeper meaning behind Jesus' teachings. When Jesus mentioned leaven, they immediately thought of bread, revealing their lack of understanding. Jesus had to remind them of the miracle, hoping they would grasp the true significance and trust in God's care. If only they had truly learned from the feeding miracle, they would have recognized God's love and provision. Their hearts would have been at peace, free from worry and doubt. Jesus' reminder was necessary because they had not fully embraced the lesson of God's unwavering care. Let us not repeat the same mistake of focusing on material things and neglecting the spiritual truths that sustain us. If they had realized that even with only one loaf of bread, they had the one who can create countless loaves, they would not have made the foolish mistake they did. The answer to the Lord's question, "How is it that you do not understand?" is simple. Their minds were so consumed with worry about their daily bread that they could not focus on anything else. Just the mention of leaven caused them to fall back into the pit of their unbelief. When the Lord reminded them of what they had seen with their own eyes, of who he was and who God was, and of the uselessness of their worries, their fear was lifted, and they were able to see the true meaning behind his previous words. Their minds became clear enough to understand and reflect on his teachings. The disciples were only concerned with the present day, not the future. The word tomorrow represents any point in the future. The next hour, the next moment, is just as uncertain and just as much in God's hands as 100 years from now. Worrying about the next minute is just as pointless as worrying about tomorrow or a day 1,000 years from now. We have no control over either, and it is God who is in control of everything. The responsibilities of tomorrow should be prepared for today. Focus on the work that needs to be done in the present moment. The future is uncertain until it is determined by God. The lack of bread was not because of carelessness, but because the Lord left suddenly. Even if there was a lack of planning, The Lord did not criticize. His goal was to address the root issue of living without God, which leads to all other problems. If one only focuses on immediate tasks, minor virtues like prudence may not be considered important. God controls memory and intellect, but individuals are responsible for their actions. Neglecting a duty after remembering it is a mistake. By prioritizing the task at hand, little planning may be needed. Take control of your will and actions, and do not procrastinate in fulfilling your responsibilities. Approach each moment with determination, and see how planning ahead becomes less important. True foresight is most valuable when it leads to decisive action and fulfilling one's duties. The work we do today sets the foundation for tomorrow's success. Our current actions shape our future, not just our ability to predict what may happen. In the story of the rich young man and the disciples, their attachment to material possessions prevented them from understanding the Lord's message. The young man, blinded by his wealth, couldn't see the opportunity presented by Jesus. His heart was consumed by worldly goods, blocking out the divine presence. Even the disciples, who had left everything to follow the Lord, struggled to let go of their attachment to material things. A simple loaf of bread was enough to distract them from Jesus' teachings. They had forgotten to trust in the Lord, allowing doubt and fear to cloud their judgment. Let's not be like the rich young man or the disciples, holding on to earthly possessions and missing out on life's true blessings. Let's have the courage to release material things and trust in God's higher power for guidance. Only then can we truly understand and follow the path ahead. If only they had been told to fast for His sake, they wouldn't have minded. But they forgot about God, acting as if He couldn't see them or didn't care. In one case, their wealth prevented them from receiving the word of the Lord, while in the other, their lack of material possessions did the same. The root of the issue was the same: if things are what destroy you, does it really matter if you have them or not? The youth, lacking trust in God, couldn't accept the greater riches offered by his Son. The disciples, forgetting who truly controls the earth's harvests, couldn't understand His word because they were consumed by the fear of going hungry for a day. They didn't trust that God had already provided for them, and they didn't believe He would continue to provide. It disappoints God when His children refuse to let Him bless them, forcing Him to hold back His hand to avoid causing harm. Failing to recognize where our help truly comes from can lead us to worship idols and put our trust in unworthy things. In times of trouble, we must trust in God, allowing Him to provide for our needs and acknowledging that all good things come from Him. Let us not be like those who push God away, but instead, let us be grateful recipients of His blessings. Distrust hinders our growth and prevents us spiritual enlightenment. We struggle to grasp the limitless love of our Father, who cares for us more deeply than any mother ever could. We doubt His attention to detail, thinking He overlooks our needs and desires. While we, imperfect beings, would do anything for our children, we question if the ultimate good will provide for us. Our hearts are consumed by worldly worries, leaving no room for spiritual enlightenment that could free us from fear and bring us joy. We ignore the divine messages, focusing on future concerns instead of living in the present moment. We let tomorrow cloud our minds and weaken our spirits, instead of finding peace in the present stillness. But you, Lord, carry out your Father's work without hesitation or doubt. You understand the unseen forces at play, guiding us with a will stronger than any human hand. Help us trust in your wisdom, resist worldly distractions, and follow your divine guidance. May we find comfort in your presence and strength in your love. The worry that is occupying your mind right now, or waiting to ambush you once you stop listening to this message, that unnecessary desire is like a demon sucking the energy out of your life. However, your concern, is it logical and unavoidable? Is it something urgent? No. So why are you letting it take the place of something truly important right now? There is nothing urgent that demands your attention at this moment. But there is, the most crucial thing a person can be tasked with. And what is that? Trusting in God. His will is your purpose. You may feel like you need something, but if it is good, why doubt that you will receive it? God may decide for you to go without it, not because He wants to deprive you, but to offer you something even better in return. As a Christian, you should grasp this idea. Even if you don't want it, you may still be missing something essential. Trust in God's plan, for He knows what is best for you. Don't be unhappy just because you don't have what you think you need. Trust in the Lord, and He will provide for you in ways you never thought possible. Instead of his immense wealth, the young man was offered the invaluable company of Jesus and treasure in heaven. When God did not grant a man's request to be delivered from a great evil, despite his repeated pleas, God instead offered him His own grace and comforted him in person through his pain. That man was the Apostle Paul. Yes, he was unique, but so what? He was still a child of God. God treats all His children according to His loving nature as a father. No scripture is meant for one person alone, not even for a great figure like the Apostle Paul. It reveals God's ways with humanity. If you resist God's plan for you, then be prepared to suffer until your pain leads you back to the Father's embrace. Trust God in all spiritual matters because everything is connected to the Spirit. If God has a plan, it is the only plan. Every time you insist on your own way, there is a lesson in it for your salvation. God will guide you like a misbehaving child until you choose to follow your Father's path. There is a clear difference between the rich who value their wealth and the poor who dislike their poverty. When they die, the rich will be weighed down by their material possessions and pleasures, while the poor will be relieved of their lack. The rich have enjoyed their luxuries, while the poor have endured hardships. However, those who don't hold on to their riches, but instead share them generously, will end up in the same place as those who accepted their poverty without bitterness. In the new world, these people will stand together, free and happy. The only important things will be the presence of God and the righteous spirits. Without greed, jealousy, vanity, and pride, we will be like children of God in a heavenly paradise. There will be no desire to outdo others or exclude them, as ambition and hatred will be seen as the same thing. In this heavenly place, the feeling will be, what you have, I have, what you want, I will provide. By giving to you, I am enriching myself tenfold. This idea of unity and generosity is the heart of our true home, where everyone is equal and loved. I want you to have wealth and possessions, but let's be realistic. You tend to get upset over small things and doubt that God will take care of you. I want to talk to you about this to help you deal with your problems, so you can focus on your faith. Start by addressing the simple tasks that are often ignored but are right in front of you. The Lord expects us to be virtuous, so how can we expect to be righteous if we can't even be honest with our neighbors? We need to start with the basics before we can achieve greater things. Truth is important, and those who are truthful in small things are truly living in truth. Those who only act truthfully in big situations are not truly living in truth. Let's learn from the disciples who worried about having only one loaf of bread, even though the bread of life was right there with them in the boat. Don't forget the simple truths in life while chasing after big ideals. Our minds often get filled with unimportant things, we clutter our sacred spaces with illusions, and we waste time rushing through things. Those who stay patient and calm are the ones who receive divine insights. When you catch yourself worrying about something small, like losing a small item, and frantically searching for it not because you need it but because you fear losing it, or when a borrowed book goes missing and you can't stop thinking about it, even though you have many others waiting to be read on your shelves, are you not acting foolishly? Shouldn't you be wiser and just laugh at such trivial matters? Maybe it's time for you to let go of things that you hold on to foolishly. Losing things can actually be a blessing in disguise, a lesson from a higher power to show us how to detach. Have you forgotten a deep thought that once moved you? You wanted to hold on to it, to save it for later, only to watch it slip away. It's time to accept the impermanence of life and learn to release what no longer benefits you. I constantly try to remember something, feeling inadequate until I find that thought again, only to realize it might be lost forever. I forget that God values living things, truths that uplift the soul, not just words written in a book or stored in memory. The real value lies in truths that inspire action and engage the will. Even though my lost thought may have had such power, if I truly believed in God, the creator of thought and memory, I would trust that if the thought was true, it will come back. It is within God's realm, not beyond my reach, waiting to be rediscovered. These may seem like small examples, not worth mentioning. But if they don't exist, then talking about them is foolish. If they do exist, then it's foolish to ignore them. Use these simple examples to reach out to those who are struggling to see God's presence in their lives. In every difficult situation, whether big or small, whether it involves losing a lot or just a little, it's important to turn to God. Ask Him, the God of your life, to help you, His child, overcome anything that goes against His nature and does not belong to you. If your troubles seem too much to handle and you feel like you can't turn to Him, that's even more reason to seek His assistance. When you can't find comfort in God, something is wrong. Don't let worries about the future or what others think distract you. Don't allow the opinions of people, whether wise or foolish, to cloud your mind and drown out the voice of God, the Eternal. If you focus on the noise of the world, you'll only bring unnecessary stress and anxiety into your life. Some may argue that worry is necessary for the world to function properly. But I ask, can anxious and greedy people do better work than those who are free and fearless in spirit? Can worry truly inspire better work than the guidance of God? Trust in Him, and let His wisdom lead you in everything you do. If someone's work is not their own, then taking care of it may actually hinder its success. But can a person be considered truly human if they produce better work out of fear of starvation rather than joyfully laboring, knowing their efforts are not in vain in the eyes of the Lord? I realize that this path may not lead to wealth, but it also does not close the door to the kingdom of heaven. Ambition, in all its forms, is focused on material gain and self-centeredness. It is a prideful shadow that tries to replace genuine aspirations. The only righteous ambition is the desire to improve oneself, all other ambitions are from evil. Yet, many who claim to be deeply religious, nurture these ambitions, filling their souls with trivial concerns and disappointments that cloud their view of God's glory. The desire for human praise, the thirst for fame, the arrogance that leads to conflict, the pride of knowledge, and all other forms of self-centeredness must be abandoned. We need to break free from these chains and strive to transcend ourselves. It is time to let go of these distractions and truly liberate ourselves. The man who is enslaved by another may never truly be free as God intended. Those who are slaves to themselves will not have God in their lives. God will not be their friend or dine with them. He will sit by a simple hearth where meals are prepared, but He will not eat in a room filled with unnecessary things, even if they are thrones and crowns. I mean He cannot. Those who are consumed by material possessions will never truly connect with God, even if He is with them all day. God will not force His way into any heart. He may send a storm to shake the very foundations of a house, but He will not enter unless the door is willingly opened. Love waits for the door to be opened from within. Every storm is just a test of love's strength. The fear of God is simply the other side of His love, a love that longs to be inside the house. Love knows that a house is just a place until it is filled with Jesus, the Christ, the Eternal. It is not a home, but a tent, until God dwells within. To create space for our souls, we must let go of things, and hold on to the eternal truths that shape our existence. But who can truly handle such a difficult task? When confronted with the army of bats and demon snakes infesting the sacred place, even the bravest souls may feel overwhelmed. Mere mortals cannot cleanse God's temple, as the act of sweeping stirs up corruptive forces. For those who try but struggle, take comfort. Remember the parable where the Creator advised to always pray and never lose hope. When facing tough challenges, let's draw strength from knowing we are not alone in our struggles. In Mark chapter 8, several key events take place that highlight Jesus' ministry and teachings. 1. Feeding the 4,000. Jesus performs a miracle by feeding a large crowd of 4,000 people with 7 loaves of bread and a few small fish. He gives thanks, breaks the loaves, and distributes them, emphasizing his compassion for the hungry and illustrating his miraculous power. 2. Pharisees' demands for a sign. After the feeding, the Pharisees come to Jesus and demand a sign from heaven to test him. Jesus sighs deeply and responds that no sign will be given, indicating their lack of faith despite the miracles he has already performed. 3. Warning about the yeast of the Pharisees. Jesus warns his disciples about the yeast of the Pharisees and Herod, which symbolizes their teachings and influence. The disciples misunderstand him, thinking he is talking about bread, and Jesus rebukes them for their lack of understanding. 4. Healing a blind man at Bethsaida. Jesus heals a blind man in Bethsaida. Initially, the man sees people looking like trees walking, but after Jesus lays his hands on him again, he sees clearly. This healing demonstrates both Jesus' power and the process of spiritual insight. 5. Peter's confession of Christ. Jesus asks his disciples who people say he is. They mention various prophets, but Peter declares that Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus affirms Peter's confession and instructs his disciples to keep this knowledge to themselves, emphasizing the true nature of his mission. 6. Jesus predicts his death. Jesus begins to teach his disciples about his impending suffering, rejection, death, and resurrection. Peter rebukes Jesus for speaking about this, but Jesus responds sternly, indicating that Peter's thinking is aligned with human concerns rather than God's plans. 7. The cost of discipleship. Jesus explains that to follow him, one must deny themselves, take up their cross, and be willing to lose their life for his sake and the sake of the gospel. He teaches about the value of the soul and the importance of not being ashamed of him and his words. This chapter emphasizes themes of faith, the identity of Jesus, the nature of discipleship, and the call to follow him despite challenges. Peace. Abba, Father.